So this is a pretty big moment. It's a bit weird at the same time because in our whole relationship, we've never been in front of the cameras. So I'm with someone who I would say is one of the most powerful manifestors that I know, the best visualizer that I know, is the coach that coaches the coach, is the support and the foundations behind everything that I do. And that person is my wife, Corisande. Corisande, how does it feel to be on camera?
Well, this is completely alien to me because normally I am watching you and I am watching you, but also thinking, I'm quite glad that that isn't me. So as much as I have huge admiration for you, I'm also looking and thinking, this is great that I'm not having to do this because it makes me feel very, very nervous. So this for me is like our conversations that we have at night, which is kind of like us dissecting the day, isn't it?
Yes.
And also just maybe talking about, what we're kind of our sort of direction for the future and where we want everything that we're doing and the message that we're trying to share, where we want that to go.
But I think at the same time, what people don't know about us, I suppose, is that we just love to keep things simple.
Yeah.
And authenticity is like the overarching theme of our life, and just speaking the truth, dissecting things. And I've known for years since we started doing this together that people know who Corisande is. Even though I was the face of Instagram, there was definitely a female's presence there, which I know people picked up and felt. And for years I was saying, Corisande, I do feel like you have a message, I know you're not a background person, you're so much more than this unseen artist. But I knew there was a time and a place, and I knew you'd be ready, and I didn't ever want to force you. But I think what's really cool, and maybe you can share this story in just a moment, only about a month ago, just before you started Instagram, something really strange happened. And we were driving back after the most amazing lunch at the Mariners in Rock, which is one of our favourite places to go. And we were driving back home. It was a Sunday afternoon, and it just clicked. And you just said, Matt, it's time for me to share my message with the world. It's time for me to start on Instagram. And I loved it. It was like the stars aligned. But I think it'd be really great for people to understand where you came to that realization and why you're doing it, and maybe what your message is as well.
Well, I think, it's interesting you say that sort of came overnight, because it very much did for me. If I think about it, I think for a long time, the thought of doing that was just would never have even entered into my mind. And I think that was because, it was very much about building the foundations that we now have, and you posting, and kind of me almost being and adding my creative side to it, from very much sort of a background element. And I think that having our son Humphrey made me realise that there was a bit of a journey for me with that whole process, with the pregnancy and also with the birth and the after, the very much that postpartum period. And I think I thought to myself, I've got something, a message, and also a duty to share what I do on a day-to-day basis, and how I suppose I've really helped myself through the dark times, the moments of struggle. And also, I think it's interesting because I received a really lovely email from a lady who asked me sort of my opinion. And I had this overwhelming sense of kind of emotion that she had actually reached out to me and she'd asked me kind of my opinion, and it suddenly felt like, well, actually, yeah, I've got something here that I can help other people. I can definitely share, not just be a voice for women, but also just a voice for anyone that is supporting someone on a huge journey and a mission, and what that feels like to be that level of support, that kind of like that net for someone to always know that they can fall back on and never be judged by that person. I think I can, very much, there's probably many people that can resonate with that. And for me, looking at Humphrey and thinking to myself, I want him to see me as more than just his mum. I want him to look at me and see a strong, independent woman who, is more than a background. that was a big thing for me. And I think, throughout my life, I have always shied away from doing anything just because of fear of judgment. So this felt like the right time for me.
How does that feel though now, being on camera and in a sense leaning into what was once such a fear and a block for you, that judgment of what other people would think? And I think a lot of people could resonate with that. Maybe they're thinking about starting something new, maybe getting on camera for the first time, and there is that thought and there is that fear of, is that person going to laugh at me? Are they going to say things behind my back? How did you get beyond that?
Well, it's the classic case of imposter syndrome. Like, it's the classic thing of seeing, other people doing something and thinking to myself, or anyone thinking to themselves, how do I fit into that? Or how am I going to, do something that person's doing? And I think what people have to realise is whoever they're watching and they're feeling that way towards, that person started in the same position as where you are now. That starting point, everyone starts there. You're seeing a very polished version of anyone that you look at now. If you everyone follows people on social media and they're seeing this polished outlook. Even seeing what we do, it looks polished now, but the reality is, at the very start, it was very much me behind the camera, balanced on a rock before I was pregnant, balanced on a rock, with a phone in hand, not knowing what we were doing, trying to do something. And very much now, we have an amazing videographer who helps us and produces the most amazing content, which is something that we could only ever have dreamt of doing at the start. But that was a process. And I think for me, I saw myself in the future having not taken this risk and having not done it. And I think to myself, well, I will always look back and wonder, well, what if I did do it? What different? And even if I only get a message from someone to say, this really helped me, or this was something I needed to hear today, I've done all I needed to do, because that one person reaching out means that something that I have done has helped and impacted them in some way in that day. And for me, it now isn't about, thinking to myself, well, what can I get from this? It's just, how can I in some way help other people? And it's a different perspective to what you do, I think.
Yeah, and I think what you've shared is really powerful, because it's such a good reminder. I think if someone's now looking at, let's say, my Instagram, like you've just said, with this amazing production crew and this really polished Instagram with this great following, I think what people don't realise, and this is a really interesting and pivotal point, is if anyone scrolls right back to the early days on me on Instagram, or actually go over to my TikTok and go right back, you'll see that it was just me with a handheld phone wearing awful jumpers and like really trying to make a thing of it. And I remember it really clearly. I was in meditation and I was visualizing, just trying to piece together this dream of like helping hundreds of thousands of people and one day millions. And I was really struggling. I was struggling to get any form of traction, struggling to build any form of like community. And a voice said to me, I remember it so clearly, it's time to up your game. And that day we went out for coffee together and I sat down, and you never judged me. You've always been such a support if I've ever said anything like that. And I said to you, Corisande, a voice said to me, it's time to up my game. And you said, yes, it is. And why don't you tell everyone from that moment, what did we agree to do? How did we come together and how did we change things up?
Well, I said to you, we've got to, we've got to become those versions of the two people that we want to be in the future now. So even though we were saying to each other, okay, well, we were not quite in a position yet to have someone to help us with the videos. Okay, but how can we make what we have better? So I said to you, well, it starts with everything. It starts with the colour. It starts with the clothes. It starts with, how you feel, how you dress, how you look. You want people to visually look at what you're doing and think, oh, I like what he's wearing, or I like the way that looks. Or, we were living in a different part of the UK to where we live now. We live now in Cornwall, but we were living somewhere different. But still, we had, as much as our big vision was to be in Cornwall, I still said to you, right, well, we have some quite nice places where we live, and let's use those locations now. And, it very much was about sort of falling in love with what we had, which was incredibly hard because we weren't where we wanted to be in terms of business and also in terms of location. But, it was just all about taking what we had and making it better.
And I think that's a really interesting point, because back then when we started, we were definitely in lack financially, and we knew what money would be able to do for us in that moment. Invest in a fancy camera, invest in a nice wardrobe, and go on these amazing set days to film. But that wasn't the case. We had to make do with what we had, which was a wardrobe of average clothes that didn't have much colour, an iPhone, and a microphone with a lead that kept disconnecting. And if anyone goes right back on our content, they'll see that. And that was very much this whole message that I now have, that you have to fall in love with your life now to paradoxically get what you want. And I think so many people have this, they don't start something because they feel in lack of the tools that they think they need. But the truth is, you've just got to start, right?
But I also think that people, like you've just said, I think we're all guilty of this, because I'm definitely guilty of this. I'll wait until I get to this point until I start something, or I'll wait until this has happened to do this. And I think, what this work teaches you is that moment never arrives. Like, I definitely was guilty of always waiting for the perfect moment. Oh, I'll do it when I've lost my baby weight. See, that was a thing for me. That was a repeating thing in my head. I will do something like this, filming this here. I'll do it once I've lost my baby weight. I'll do it when I feel comfortable again. But, I'm then putting myself under a huge amount of pressure. I'm then saying I'm not good enough now, when actually I'd arguably say I'm going to be better now, because I'm raw and in that moment of that journey, that very much that starting journey of being a first-time mum. And so I think, I'm ready now, because I've got all those emotions and all those feelings, and I'm able to share that now and it be quite raw. Whereas, 6 months' time, when Humphrey's a year old, it's going to be a different stage. So I'm going to be sharing a whole different part of how I feel and who I am. So I now always say, we've got to do it now. Let's not wait for it. And that's with everything that we talk about. We always, don't we? We always sit at night and we say, oh, we'll do, actually, no, let's just do it now. Let's make that decision and do it now. Well, how can we do it now? So whatever that is, whether it's going on holiday or whether it's going somewhere amazing, or if, we always try and do a version of whatever it is that we're dreaming of doing. We say, right, how can we do that or embody that emotion now?
But I think
it's taken time, that has, though, hasn't it?
Yes, because what I think, just to expand on what you've said, you're saying essentially there's a part of your mind that was saying to you, don't get on camera and do that with Matt until I've lost the baby weight.
Without a doubt, yeah.
But then another part of you that said, but hang on, our overarching message is move beyond wanting, which is waiting, which is not having, and into being.
And also, though, an element of authenticity. Because I actually think, if I look now at what we do now, I look at us, and you did a recent podcast, actually, and I, for the first time, looked at it and thought, this is just like sitting with Matt at home. This is the most authentic, stripped back version of you that anyone will see. And so, this feels like this is the message that we have to continue, that I want people to always, obviously there's parts of our life that we will keep private, but I want people to always know that what you're seeing here is the authentic version of us. This is who you'd meet if you met us in the street, or if you sat with us and had a drink or a meal. This is who you'd meet. It's not like different versions of us. There's no persona, because I think that's exhausting. Yeah,
absolutely. And, it's nice to be in our own studio at our own home, which again was once a huge manifestation. And I said at the beginning that Corisande is one of the most powerful manifestors that I know. I would say she is actually one of the most powerful unconscious manifestors that I know. And I'll tell you why, because before I even got into this work, some very strange things used to happen to Corisande that I didn't necessarily see. She had this incredible ability at literally saying she was having something and would just have it. And it was bizarre. Like our whole family would be like, there goes Corisande again, getting that thing that she put her mind to. But very odd synchronicities as well. Like the biggest that I remember was we were actually on holiday here in Cornwall in 2014, and we were staying in Rock, and there were dachshunds everywhere that week, all over the beach. And you said to me, Matt, we're going to have a dachshund. And we would drive, and you kept saying it, and we were driving somewhere and we were talking about getting a dachshund. And in that moment, an unknown phone number phoned you through the car. I'll never forget this. And you answered the phone, and I can't remember her name, but she said, "Hello, is that Corisande? This is Jill from the Dachshund Rescue. Just phoning to say you put your name on the list 2 years ago. You're now next in line, and we have a Dachshund ready for rescue 10 miles from your home. Are you interested? A chocolate wire-haired, or was it short-haired? Harvey? Was he short-haired? I'm terrible with short-haired and long and wide.
He was smooth.
He was a smooth-haired Dachshund. And we picked him up a week later. But going back to that point, so Corisande's always been unbelievable at manifesting unconsciously. The moment we started to learn the tools together, you took it to a whole new level. And I think that's because you have this incredible ability in a meditation to be absolutely 100% there. You are transported to a whole other world, and you can see that life fully manifested, whereas I really struggle with that. But I think what would be really interesting for people to hear is we worked together on you manifesting the perfect pregnancy and the perfect birth. And I want tell that story because you absolutely did. But I think what would be really interesting for people to understand is what together we didn't focus on. And as a result, because we were left to, let's say, the randomness of it, what happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, just on that, I think, I don't have the ability to see a sort of separation between where someone is and what it is that they want. I should just first off start by saying that. So I never look at someone or myself and think, I don't have the ability to have that. There is no kind of, block in my head. I just very much see that there's a process to get to that, and anyone can have what they desire and want. So that definitely helps. I think that's maybe inbuilt in me from childhood. But in terms of the pregnancy, yes, we absolutely, with your help, we manifested the most amazing pregnancy and birth. And I think how we did that is I should say I do struggle to let go, because I very much like to be in control of myself, my body, all types of situations. So for me, the feeling of going into something and not having full control was really, really difficult. But what I realised is that you never question, do you, how your body is going to heal from a cold, say.
No.
If you get a cold, you just know that there's a process. You get the cold, you have the symptoms, you feel ill, and then it passes. Same with a cut. You don't say, well, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to sit and I'm going to stare at it until it heals. You just let it happen. All these things we just allow to happen. And so I realised that I had no control over how our baby was growing, and I didn't need to. My energy didn't need to be focused on that. My energy needed to be focused on my mindset, my absolute rock solid mindset. And that meant, I could control the thoughts that came in. And I had a duty to not only myself, but also us as a couple to, essentially, really filter through what was coming through every day. And I think, that I used to say to myself, right, that's my job and I'm going to assign myself that role. So every day I would create a routine, a very clear routine. So I didn't focus on anything else that year. I didn't focus on manifesting anything material. I didn't focus on manifesting anything big. My big manifestation and my big focus for the year was my body, my health, and every day waking up and the thoughts that I would think. So it was completely clear. I designed I find like it really easy. We kind of both do, don't we? Music. We enjoy like a playlist, don't we? We find that really helpful. So I created a playlist of different songs that I attached an emotion to. So that was the feeling of having just an amazing pregnancy, feeling my baby inside me, feeling healthy, feeling well. And then I would attach something to the birth, and that euphoric feeling of actually saying I've done it, and having the control over the birth and having a control over my body and how I would feel after. giving birth and that amazing feeling of kind of like I've done it. And so I really focused on that energy. And every single day I would put and set aside as much time as I possibly could to do that. So I actually really, it was probably an hour every morning I would sit and do that. But I mean, even if I'd have done 10 minutes, it was just every day doing myself justice and actually just getting up and saying, okay, right, today, what am I not going to let go by and slip by my awareness? So I'm not going to worry today about the scan that I'm having. I'm not going to worry about, what if it's not okay? What if something's not right? No, I'm not going to allow that to happen. It is going to be fine. And what I'm going to focus on is how I feel today, because how I feel today will affect our baby and will affect his happiness. And, if I can find that kind of synergy between, my heart, my brain and that feeling, then it will keep me going all day. So every day we would practice that, wouldn't we?
We would. And what Corisande's not giving herself credit for here, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, is you used to be a massive worrier,
huge worrier
about health.
Huge worrier.
You were the type of person that you get like a small like lump or graze and be like heading straight to Google, and like of course you saw the worst case scenario straight away. Yeah. And that was Corisande, wasn't it? You always worried. And I think what I'm really proud of you for is it's proof through the determination of your mindset that you never want to allow those thoughts in. And that's just what I teach, that we're not our thoughts, we're always separate from them. The default mode network in our brain will always try and take us to worst case scenario, but you, and I'm sure it was exhausting at some points, of course, for 9 months, really focused on the positive outcomes. And people ask, do we manifest together? And we would sit in bed together, wouldn't we? And I would visualize an aspect of what Corisande was visualizing. We would journal separately, of course, and practice gratitude for the perfect pregnancy and the perfect birth. And I just want to share something, and then I know you're going to share this. I was working with an amazing client who was pretty much at the same point as you in pregnancy. I think she was 2 weeks behind you, actually. And this was her third child. And she was working with me for several reasons. One of them, of course, being the birth of her third child. But that wasn't actually the main thing she was manifesting. What she was manifesting was the perfect postpartum. And I remember thinking, I didn't even really understand, because obviously Humphrey was our first child. I didn't even really understand what that even really meant, And then I'll pass the mic back over to you, because remember, you were so focused on the pregnancy, you were so focused on the birth, but what you and I never spoke about, never even put any energy or attention towards the manifestation, was the period after.
No, we didn't. And I think, when I think about it now, I think that this happened to me for a reason, because I actually think that this was, because you can get a bit complacent with, I do this every single day and I've been doing it for years. Yeah. And, it's interesting when you don't do it because of, I don't know, what was something happening in your life, which happens to all of us, that puts almost like it puts the brakes on it. How that can affect whatever it is that you're going through in that moment. And I don't think that you could necessarily prepare for the after, because I think everyone deals with it in a different way, and I think everyone experiences a different journey. But I think what was fascinating is that I felt very, very, like, by sort of 7 months, I felt in control. So there wasn't really anything that could penetrate my mindset. I felt very much that, people would say to me on a regular basis, have you got sort of plan B? And, are you prepared for everything? What about if this happens? Old Corisande, that would have penetrated like a needle through my brain, and that would have eaten away and eaten away and eaten away, and that would have grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. But I wasn't letting that through. And it was only when you mentioned your client manifesting the perfect postpartum that I didn't have time to think about it, but my brain sort of thought, that's not something I've really given much thought to. And when Humphrey was born, I had an amazing birth, absolutely amazing. And, he came into the world and he was very, very healthy. But I quickly took quite a decline. And I think that I felt how I felt is that I had this control every morning of like, I would get up, I'd have this routine, I'd put all my effort into my morning routine and how I would start my day. And I, I would, if I ever didn't do my meditation, I'd really know, because I'd know of how I felt. And I couldn't do it. I suddenly couldn't do it. I hadn't got the time. I hadn't got the energy. Humphrey would have been up all night, and I just hadn't have slept. And so I'd get up in the morning, and I'd be getting up at random times, sometimes like 10 in the morning. I wouldn't be dressed, and all of these things. I had no preparation. And also, just to add to that, you're in pain, and so your mind is kind of having to deal with this feeling of like, I've got to carry on for this baby, but I'm in pain, and mentally I'm in pain. And sorry, I'm getting quite emotional. It's taking me a bit by surprise.
You're doing great, see.
I think I just completely lost myself.
I know. How did you get yourself back, though?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Don't know where this has come from.
It's the raw, unfiltered emotion.
I think this is what this is why I think I started everything that I started, because I think I looked at myself in the mirror and I just didn't recognise myself. And I think all women experience this feeling of like this euphoric moment where someone hands you this baby and it feels like a miracle, but then you just, in that moment, you have to just face like a new person. You have to like meet this new person, and you don't know who she is, and you don't know like how to feel or how to process anything. And all the things like you once turned to, which for me was meditation, it was my journaling, it was everything. It was us having our conversations. There wasn't the time for it. There wasn't the time for it. Suddenly that had to take a back seat, because not only was I having those problems, I was having other issues as well, which we all face. And I think that my real test was one day I was sitting feeding Humphrey, and I was feeling really low because I thought to myself, I haven't meditated for a week. And I thought to myself, I've really slipped. And I felt like so guilty, because I thought to myself, I shouldn't be thinking about this. I should just be thinking about Humphrey. But I realised in that moment, I thought, I've still got to do this for myself. Like, I've still got to be the best mum to him and to be the best version of myself. I've still got to do this. So I thought to myself, right, I can't continue with the old routine, because at the moment I have got to realise that my routine's all over the place, but I can do a form of it. I can do a form of it. And this is something that I want everyone to remember, because I had a really nice message from a lady who said to me, how have you carried on since having Humphrey? And the honest truth is, I'm not going to sit here and say that I did. I was able to every day continue to meditate, that everything continued as it was, because it didn't. But that's fine. Like, that's real life. Like, we're all going to, like, we're all going to go through things that shake up that moment. But you know what? It's in those moments, those down moments, that you think, I don't know, I've lost kind of like my routine, and I've lost the way I used to do things, that you actually adopt a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think actually what I did is I said to myself, right, I can do this, but in a different way. So when he was asleep, I used to sit and journal. And I'd have him here resting on me, and I'd be journaling. And you know what? I wouldn't even journal about anything. I wouldn't put any pressure on myself to think about the future. I'd just be thinking about that moment, and how could I get through the day or that hour or that evening? Because the nights were pretty dark, I must admit. I used to dread those nights. But I just used to sit and think, right, what can I do this evening that might be, might make it easier? And I would do that, and I'd feel amazing, because next day I'd think, great, I did it. I did that day, and I'd just keep going and going and going. And each day it would be small. It might be 2 minutes of meditation, but I would feel great, because I'd be like, I'm getting a part of my old self back. And you know what? Now I sit here now, and my mornings are amazing. They're back to normal, because I'm like, great.
We work together, don't we? In the morning?
Yeah, okay, right, we can't sit and meditate together, but right, you take this shift and you do that hour and I'll do the other hour. Or, okay, this morning we've woken up late, but can you do half an hour and I'll do 10 minutes? Like, we just do it, and we just try and do the best, don't we?
We don't skip a day, but we work together.
Yeah.
And I think what you've just said, and I think so proud of you. Sorry. I think what you've just said, I'm so proud of you for being vulnerable and giving yourself space, because it's what it means to be a human being. There's always things in life that trigger us when we're least expecting it. I always say it's the law of rhythm. People think that when we're in the down phase, the darkness that you were in, that this was like, I remember you saying, like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know where old Corisande is anymore. But isn't it incredible now in hindsight, when you look back, that the birth of this woman now on this podcast, and the conversation we're having, was born out of that darkness.
Yeah.
So my message to anyone that can resonate with Corisande right now is that whatever you're going through, because they'll be in a version of their own darkness right now, where maybe they can't see the light, they can't see the way out, they don't know why this is happening to them. And it doesn't matter whether you're married to a manifestation coach or not. It's really hard to see the light when you're in the dark, but you just kept going. You just kept going. You just kept going. And what's been birthed out of it has changed your life, and I'm sure will change a lot of other people's lives too. And I think that's a really important reminder, isn't it?
But also just, showing up for a small amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be an hour of meditation. It does to achieve this. It doesn't need to be. It just needs to be a better version of what you did yesterday. And that's how I saw it every day. I thought, well, do you know what? Today was better than it was yesterday. I did more than I did yesterday. Because we were talking about this earlier. It's like, I always think anyway, this process, this building this routine is the same as, training for a marathon or training, you're an athlete or in some form of anything that you're building up to, and it's a repetitive over and over again. You're not going to be able to run 5K straight off.
Yeah.
Going from doing no exercise for a year, you're not. There's a level of training, there's a level of repetitive work, there's a level of groundwork that needs to happen before that. And that's like this. You start with a minute, you start with 2 minutes, and you build it up, and you build it up, but you make it fit into your life.
Yeah. And I think another reminder, and then so many amazing people in our manifestation club on my Instagram have asked us questions that I want to cover in this episode together, and we'll try and maybe cover 5 each. But first, before we move on to that, I think the one thing that was my wake up call myself, like, no one's perfect. I always say every day is an opportunity to learn something new, is that in that moment, as much as I could see externally what you were going through, it was very hard for me to understand your level of consciousness in that, because I hadn't gone through that. I couldn't possibly understand the change in hormones and the change in your body and how that felt. It was, for me, being the man, it was all of a sudden like, I have this now beautiful physical object here that was once inside Corisande and is now here.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I didn't experience any of that. For me, it was just pure joy and bliss. And here's this little amazing baby. And Corisande's in this really dark place, and it was hard for me to understand that. And I think it's a reminder a lot of the time that so many of us can be unconscious that someone's conscious. And all I did in that moment, as much as I really struggled to understand it, was give Corisande space, give you space to just allow yourself to emerge. And we spoke, and it was gentle, wasn't it? And eventually you found your way out. We didn't listen to, and maybe this is for another episode, we didn't listen to the opinions of other people.
No, we didn't.
We didn't listen to family members.
No.
We didn't listen to red tape.
No.
We were authentically, we did what you and I felt was right. We trusted our gut. We listened to the signs. The only people that were important was just me and you and Humphrey, and we followed that.
Definitely.
And together, through authenticity, we got out of that. We got you out of that dark place. You got yourself out of that dark place, but it started with speaking and speaking your truth.
Yeah.
And I think on that, why don't we look at some of the questions that we've had?
Definitely.
So the other day, as you know, Corisande, I have a channel on my Instagram called Matt Cook's Manifestation Club.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's not in there, make sure you join, because I'm always dropping voice notes in there and decoding angel numbers and various other things. But I knew we were going to sit down for this episode, and I asked people to ask us any questions that they have for either me, for you, or a combination of the two. So I've sent these to you. I know you've just got them on your phone, so let's just keep it simple. And I would say let's pick 5 questions each to go through.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll ask you a question. And these questions are questions that we've been asked in the channel on Instagram.
Right, okay.
And we'll go from there. So let me just pick one. This is an interesting one. Corisande, what's the story behind the song Innocent Warrior from Moana, and why is that so special to you during the pregnancy with Humphrey?
So I was desperately trying to find actually this is links hilariously as well to like wanting something. So I really wanted a song that would kind of link my whole kind of pregnancy journey and the birth, and something that I could kind of keep going back to. And also when he was born, I could return to. Couldn't find anything, nothing resonated at all. And then one day I was in meditation, and I'd actually started doing, for anyone that does meditation, I do something called transcendental meditation, which I started during pregnancy, which is really good for kind of stilling, making your mind nice and still and stopping thoughts coming in. And I was sitting in TM, and I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden I could hear this song just playing over and over in my head. I didn't know what the song was. I could just make out what the kind of music was, and it was familiar to me. I'd heard it before. And I spent the day trying to find the song, and then realised it was from Moana, and it's in for anyone that's seen the film, it's the kind of at the beginning when she's like kind of like parting the water and picking up the shells, and it's such a sweet moment. And that song just instantly, that was it. And I played it over and over again. And in fact, I played it to Humphrey when he was first born. I play it to him now. And, it was just a song that came to me, and it obviously came to me for a reason. And during the birth, it was just like, it was that end song that got me through. So.
But for anyone who doesn't know Corisande has this great way of playing things down a little bit without knowing. So what Corisande's missed there is that you hear, don't you? Try and pick a song that you can play whilst you're pregnant so your baby can get used to it.
Yeah.
And we tried to find a song that we thought would resonate. And we knew the paradox of trying was wanting. So I said to Corisande, let's just set the intention and it will come. And what Corisande's playing down there is she has this very strange ability, which blows my mind. And it's incredible that when she goes into a meditation, she sees things, she hears things, she's completely transported. And you were there in that meditation, and you could hear Innocent Warrior playing. Now, as soon as Corisande told me that, what blew us away, and no one knew that we were going to name our child Humphrey.
That's a key moment,
and if anyone goes to Google and looks at the meaning of Humphrey, it means peaceful warrior.
Yeah.
And that song was Innocent Warrior. And that absolutely blew us away, because I'm thinking, well, firstly, how did that happen? Where did it come from? And it's coming from the aspect of ourselves outside of time. And that was a perfect example of setting an intention and surrendering it and letting it in. And in fact, on that, here's another question for you, because people have asked Corisande this question. What does surrender in manifestation actually look like to Corisande?
Incredibly difficult. That's what it, that's what it looks like. It was my biggest challenge, because I used to say, well, I don't understand, it, for me anyway, it always symbolized letting something go. Well, I'm surrendering it. I'm not thinking about it then, I'm not controlling it. Like, my mind can't comprehend that. But I very quickly realized that controlling it means you're manufacturing that manifestation. So you find yourself second guessing, oh, well, that's meant for me. I'm meant to have that. But you're not leaving then any room for anything magical to come in. So, I used to come up with, it had to be this, it had to look like that, it had to be that, and and it couldn't be anything else. So essentially then, I was leaving no space for anything better. So how I surrender now is I tell myself, it could be this, or it could be something 10 times better, Corisande, and how exciting is that? And I see it a little bit like, a game. And I just say to myself, well, what would I rather? Would I rather the unknown, something really exciting, or would I rather force it? And I think, as you do this work time after time, you realise that actually the best moments are the ones that are a surprise. That surprise is having a surprise is the best feeling in the world. So I now choose that every time. And honestly, that just means being really comfortable with allowing the universe to bring it to you, and saying to yourself that actually that is manifestation, not forcing something, because then you're not manifesting, you're forcing your way through it. So actually say to yourself, if you want to truly manifest, set an intention, set an idea, but let the universe be like the architect and bring it all together. So that's how I do it. With difficulty, though, can I just say?
With difficulty. All right, so what questions are there on there for
Okay,
me,
we've got some really good ones. We've got so many, but we've got a couple that I think are really important here. So one that really, really sticks out to me is someone has actually asked, why are they not seeing synchronicities or signs, even though I meditate and I'm open to them?
I think that's a really good question.
It is a really good question.
Because I say that, firstly, what are signs and synchronicities? It's the breadcrumbs. It's essentially the initial components of physical reality manifesting. But what people forget to understand is that signs and synchronicities is a physical component externally, and there's also two other ways first that signs can manifest. And the first sign is a feeling, which is intuition. And the second is mind. So it's the light bulb moments. So just because you're not seeing physical signs and synchronicities doesn't mean you're not being guided. This is what people, I think, really need to get. So think about what's communicating with you, where the signs are even coming from. The signs are coming from a version of yourself that exists outside of time and space and can see the whole picture. So if it's not a physical being. That component of you is energy. It's not a person. So the best way it can firstly communicate with you is through the link, which is your sixth sense, because you're still part of it. So if someone's not seeing the physical signs and synchronicities, get more present in life. Get into a deep, deep meditation, or even get into nature and just sit and just wait and just see what happens. It could be a feeling. It could be a light bulb moment, and just know that it happens in different ways. Like I've said before, Corisande's a million times better than me at visualizing, but I would say that's great because everyone's different. So if you're not seeing the signs and synchronicities, then here's my message. Don't try and find them. Don't let go completely. Just set the intention that I'm open and ready for a sign or a synchronicity through either my gut, my mind, or the external world, and then just let go.
Love that. Okay.
I've
actually got another one I think you should answer here. Okay, this is a really good one. So, when you're in a season of doubt or delay, what do you actually do behind the scenes to stay on track?
When you're in the season of delay and you're not seeing the results, is the time to double down.
Yeah.
So that delay creates anxiety.
Or doubt.
In my opinion, we're either in the past, which is, this is a deep one, but I think it's my opinion that we're either in the past, which is depression, we're either in the future, which is anxiety, or we're either in the present, which is the now. So if we're doubting or we're worrying about the outcome, we're in the future, we're anxious. So the real key is to stay present. And that's really hard to do when we're in the future and we're anxious that it's not happening. So what I mean by doubling down is doubling down in the present moment, because it's so easy when we're anxious to not sit down in meditation, not be able to think straight, have an excuse. I can't do it. I'm so stressed. If you can't find the time to meditate for 20 minutes, you should be meditating for 40 minutes. So in my seasons of delay or anxiety about something not happening, I really stay focused. Some of my manifestations happen quickly. Some take months. So one of my, as I've shared many times, secret weapons when it comes to manifestation for me, because I'm not the best visualizer, is gratitude. So I would say, thank you. I'm so grateful and blessed now that, and whatever it is that I'm working on, explain why, and really be grateful and say thank you for that thing that I'm seeking before it's even manifested. And that particular gratitude statement, I'll say every single day until that season of delay is done. Okay. Back to Corisande. A couple more questions.
Yeah.
So, question for you, Corisande.
Okay.
This is an interesting one. What's it like being the support behind a coach who teaches manifestation to hundreds of thousands of people?
Oh, that's a really good one.
Because you are my coach, you are my support, and you're the person I turn to when I'm in that season of delay or confusion. So what do you do?
Well, I actually think it's magic. I find it magical because I think, if I look, we've been together for a long time and I've seen you through we call it like a season. We've each individually seen ourselves through different seasons in our life. And I think I have just witnessed like a beautiful butterfly, just like watching you grow. And so I feel privileged actually to watch it. I feel really privileged to watch your journey, and I feel privileged to be on this journey with you. So for me, it's really fun because I have just, I'm just loving being there and witnessing what's happening behind the scenes. So for me, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think that it's given me so much in my life. So it's all gratitude. It's all love. So I had a lovely lady message me, and she wanted to I know that she mentioned that she was also in the early stages of her pregnancy, and I just want to look back at her lovely message, because I had quite a few messages, but hers definitely stuck out to me because I could really resonate with where she was in her pregnancy. So she asked me, how did you maintain your routines, focus and positivity and trust in the universe when pregnant? This is a really good question. So how I did it is I assigned like a role, I think, to myself. So I said, right, okay. So like I said at the beginning, I said, right, what is my role in this? Like a job, to filter through any negative thoughts. And to also, like a sieve. So my mind was to act like a sieve and only to catch the things that were important. So the love, the happiness, the gratitude, the energy, that was the only thing that was important to me. Everything else could slip through the sieve. I wasn't bothered or interested in it. So how I did it was I didn't put any pressure on myself. I just focused on my own lane, focused on what I had to do, and allowed myself the days that I did feel tired or I felt sick or I didn't feel great. What can I do today? Even if it's only 10 minutes, even if it's only 5 minutes, what can I do today that will take me a step closer to the best version of myself, the best version of me in the future? How can I do that? And I think that's a really key thing here, is if you wake up in the morning, you think, do you know what? I don't feel great today. I haven't had a great night's sleep. I haven't felt great. Okay, let me just do what I can. And allowing yourself that, not saying to yourself, I have to, if I don't do this, I'm failing. It's just every day showing up in some small way, not just for this person now, but for your future self. Because I think if you do it consistently every day, the difference that it will make, not just to the way you feel throughout your pregnancy, but also to your mindset as you're approaching birth, it just helps. And if you can do anything to help you in any way, shape or form, just take it. Take it and just see it as that you need that self-care. Just that small amount of self-care every day helps you. So I would make sure every day I set aside a realistic amount of time. And I think if you've got other children, I know it can be difficult. So it is just waking up every day and saying, right, I'm just showing up here for myself now, today, but also that future version of me. So it was a non-negotiable
I love that
moment in my morning.
I love that. So a question that we've been asked together is, and I'm happy to answer this one, but maybe get your perspective too, is as a couple, how do we manifest together and what does that actually look like?
Okay.
So I would say that, of course, Corisande and I are manifesting a life together, but we have individual goals. I've written a book. It's been published this year. So, of course, Corisande was a great support, but that was something that I was doing myself and there were manifestations involved there. But I think when it comes to, let's say, when we manifested our dream house together, what we would do is first get clear together on what it looked like. So we would ask why we want a certain house, what are all the components of what makes a good house. We get really clear on all the details, the ingredients. Let's say the cake represents the house and we get clear on all the ingredients. And then together we would create a vision and a story for what that looked like. So different scenes like holding hands on the beach and visualizing picking up the key. So we're very uniformed in the vision for what it would look like. But then at the same time, we recognize that we each had our own strengths. So Corisande could visualize that a lot clearer than I could. But equally, I was probably stronger when it came to the writing aspects and the journaling and the gratitude and maybe the letting go part, which I know you really struggle with. But I actually would say that it's the energy together, the coherent energy in a room. So what we did, and we still really try and do, if we can, obviously now we have Humphrey, is the togetherness in the room, doing the work at the same time. So we'd wake up at the same time, wouldn't we? We'd meditate at the same time. We'd journal at the same time, do our gratitude at the same time, do our affirmations at the same time. And it would be the unified energy together that would absolutely magnify those intentions, because the real secrets here are intention, which is the vision, and then the emotions and the feelings. And I've written this in my book, but I could genuinely feel, I'd look over at Corisande sometimes and I would almost feel her energy. It would literally be like she was in her own world, is what I would say. And then we just helped each other along the way. Would you say there was anything else to that in terms of how we manifest together?
Well, I think yes. And I think this will probably help people that are parents, maybe, and are sitting thinking, love that idea, but how are you doing that with 3 kids?
Yeah.
Which I can completely understand. Or anyone that's got to rush out in the morning or whatever. We still do this to this day. So I think that clarity is really key here. And I think you talk about this a lot, but I think every single component, like, when you order in a restaurant, you wouldn't just say, I want something a little bit like this. You order a specific meal off the menu. And this is exactly the same with manifestation. And you and I always, if we're unclear or there's that sense of there isn't amount of clarity there, we go on a walk.
Yes.
So we find somewhere that we can kind of like lose ourselves where there aren't that many people. Take Humphrey with us.
Yes.
And we go on a walk and we just walk and we talk and we visualize and we think and we plan and we really get clear. And the energy of that, finishing that walk and feeling like, oh, I'm completely, because when you're clear, when you know what you're ordering, you feel great. You feel amazing because you think, right, I know exactly what direction I'm going in.
You've reminded me there, though, that we actually go on a walk a lot of the times when we're not clear on what we're manifesting. And a lot of people have asked, how do you get clear on your intentions? And every single time for you and I, that has been going on a walk together.
Yeah.
Putting Humphrey in the arty pop now and walking together and really, really getting clear on that, wasn't it? And on that as well, you mentioned it, I know, in another question, but what Corisande and I do, once we're clear on the vision, we create these different scenes. So if you can imagine when we were buying this house in Cornwall, we didn't know what the house looked like. So we didn't even really try, and I couldn't visualize a house, because how do you visualize a house if you don't know what it is? You can visualize it like maybe being in like a quaint cottage or being in the sitting room. But we had these scenes where for us, it was driving down the A30 from Shropshire. That was like the first scene. The second scene would be walking on our favorite beach in Rock. The third scene would be picking up the keys. The fourth scene would be somehow arriving at a cottage and sort of walking through that cottage together. And then another scene would be sort of Christmas and what that would be like with the holiday playing in the background, and then being for breakfast somewhere, then going to a garden centre and getting like plants. So we would have these different scenes, and then what we would do is we would call it our visualization playlist, and every scene that I've just discussed there, together Corisande and I would find a piece of music that we haven't associated with a memory, and we'd associate that piece of music to that scene, and we would then create that playlist in Spotify, and we would listen to it as a form of meditation, but we'd also play it in the car, play it around the house, wouldn't we? And we'd do things like that.
And I actually found that when we would listen to it, those emotions would just naturally start to kick in.
Yes.
So
let's ask one more question each from the list, and then let's wrap this episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So you go first for me, and then I'll finish with one for you.
Right. This is an absolutely fantastic one. So, do you ever feel pressure to have it all figured out? And how do you handle those moments as a teacher and just being a human being?
It's a great question. I'll tell you why. For anyone listening to this, really think about this. Do you ever remember in any of my content hearing about what I'm manifesting?
No.
And the truth is, because what I learned the hard way, because being stung from people's opinions or things not happening is revealing too much. Not because I don't believe it. No. I believe in concealing my intentions. I tell my nearest and dearest, and to be honest, it's really normally only Corisande. And the reason I do that is because I know together we can create a powerful vision around it and manifest it together. But secondly, no one will ever understand or feel the same way about your intention and your manifestation. No one will. So what someone will do is they'll see it from their own light, their own mirror. It will reflect on them, your intention, and they will share with you how they authentically feel about it, which will never, ever be what you want to hear. Ever. So I conceal my intentions for that reason. It keeps me on the pedestal. And I don't feel under pressure because, and I'm going to answer this in two ways. Firstly, no one knows really what I'm manifesting, and I love that because I stay in power. And secondly, and things a lot of times don't manifest for me, but that is fine because I absolutely know now, and we can dive into this in another episode, that rejection is protection, but more importantly, the piece that people miss is its redirection. And I understand the science behind that redirection. So I'm never afraid if things don't happen or what people think, because I know it will always manifest in divine time when it's ready, and it will always be something better. The only thing I have to do is surrender my ego, let go and trust. So hopefully that answers that question.
That's amazing. I love that.
Okay, Corisande. So here's the last question to wrap this episode. Someone has asked, what's that one thing that someone would be surprised to know about Corisande when it comes to this work?
That I was I still am a warrior, a serial warrior. I mean, if I think back to before I started doing, I should just say here that it's a very interesting perspective that I now have, because I see an old version of myself and the version that I am today. If I look at my old version of me, I would worry about everything.
Yeah.
And for me, it was very much a worry that would start, and that worry would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it would just go off into different directions and into different rabbit holes, and it would be exhausting. And it's not to say that I don't ever worry, because I do, but it's how long I worry for now.
And that's true. You still worry, but you don't stay on the worry for very long, do you?
I think this is really key here, that this work doesn't turn you into a superhuman.
No.
It doesn't mean you never worry or that you don't have struggles. But it means, that what you're not doing is you're not leaving this life to the randomness of it chance. Just all unfolding and to just all to chance. This is giving you control back. That's what it's doing. And so when I do this work, I feel like I'm in control. I don't feel like I have someone controlling my brain for me. I feel like I'm in control. So thoughts will come in, and worries will come in. But how long do I stay on them for? And I stay on them for, really no time at all now, which has taken me, it has taken me a lot of time and a lot of practice.
I was just going to say on that as well, for people listening, I'm the same. Of course, we're all human. I still have worrying thoughts that come in.
Yeah.
And I think what Corisande just said there is so important, because it's never quick enough for me to even ever vocalize that worry.
No.
Corisande would probably say I'm the most positive person that she knows, and that
I do say that on a regular basis.
And that I never worry.
Yeah, nothing penetrates you.
And the truth is, I see a worry come in. Literally, I can become aware of it there in the corner of my eye, literally, and I have this just ability to just see it go straight past me. And so the truth is, you'll never stop those thoughts, you'll never stop the worry, but you become, let's say, a bit of an expert at just seeing them like clouds that pass by.
But it's also a little bit like how I see it now, how I see those thoughts now, is I don't see them as worries or fears or doubts. What I actually see them is people coming to my door and ringing the doorbell.
Yes, good
ringing
way.
The doorbell. Do I want to get up and answer that door?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't need
That's
to, and I don't
way of
have
looking
to.
at it.
So the doorbell's ringing. It's ringing, and it's still ringing. But that person will eventually go away. They won't stay there and ring that doorbell all day. So that's how I see it. I can hear the doorbell. I can very much hear it. I know there's someone at the door, but I'm not answering it.
It's a great analogy.
And that's a great analogy. That's how I see it.
I love that. So I think let's wrap that here. And I think for anyone watching this, I would just say thank you from the bottom of my heart for the support you've given Corisande. Go and follow her over on Instagram. I'm really excited to see where that's going. And thank you, of course, for everyone who supports me on this journey too. And I would say on that note, we don't know where this episode's going to go. We don't know whether it's going to turn into a podcast. And that's the beauty of this. The beauty of this work is when you have an idea, when you have a dream, when you intuitively know something's right, just take the inspired action. We have an amazing production crew. We have Ben, our director, who's been here the whole day in our studio. And we just knew that we had a message to share together, and we're just making it happen. So we don't know when the next episode's going to launch. We don't know when it's going to air. We don't know what it's going to be about, but we're going to keep doing it. That's our promise. We're going to keep doing this. And I think if anyone's got any questions, drop them below. Comment below. Let us know what questions you've got. And we'll keep doing these episodes and we'll keep evolving with you. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.